Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to Beaumont City Council regular council meeting here at 6:01 on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 here in the City Council chambers. We are now in order. I'll begin with our land acknowledgement as we always begin our meetings. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. Madam Clerk, any amendments to our agenda this evening?
No, Mayor, I'm not aware of any adoptions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Is Shalane coming into the meeting?
Yep.
Okay. We'll just wait a moment here.
Okay.
Wait for our clerk to arrive. Thank you. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute recess from the live feed until our clerk gets out of a short meeting she's involved in. And we'll continue with our meeting. We'll take a short 5-minute break and we'll curtail the live feed for now. Thank you. After a short administrative break, we are continuing with our agenda this evening. Item number 2, adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please put the agenda motion on the screen?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any additions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Would you please place the motion on the screen to adopt the agenda? Member of Council willing to move the agenda motion? Councillor Barnhart.
That the June 24th, 2025 Council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Councillor, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I should mention before we go any further, Councillor Mokoff-Swain and Councillor Talabas are both away this evening for their work and aren't able to join us either remotely or in person. So there's just 5 of us this evening. So majority is 3 on any motion going forward. With that, would you please initiate the voting process on the agenda motion? That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of adopting the agenda. Thank you. Next on our agenda is open forum. Madam Clerk, do we have any open forum guests this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. We did not have any registrations by noon of the timeline as per the meeting procedures bylaw. We do have one gentleman here this evening that would wish to address council. If council wishes to hear from this gentleman, they would need to suspend their meeting procedures bylaw in order to allow the gentleman to speak.
Okay. Is there a member of council willing to move in a motion to suspend our rules?
Hi, Mayor Daniluk. Thank you. I would so move.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you draft an appropriate motion?
I am just doing that right now, Mayor.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. Take your time. Thanks.
Maybe, can I just speak briefly to that while the motion's being drafted, or do you want me to wait till the motion's on the table?
Motion first, please.
Sure.
Then we'll discuss the motion. Does it seem dark in here? just me, but it seemed dark.
The gentleman that is here this evening is here to discuss one of the bylaws that is on the agenda this evening that could potentially be subject to a public hearing. I just want to provide that procedure advice to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Penna, would you please make your motion?
Thanks, Mayor Dalek. I move that council temporarily suspend the meeting procedures bylaw to allow an open forum presentation.
Please speak to your motion.
Thanks, Mayor Daniluk. Seem kind of ironic that I would move the motion since at another meeting a couple months ago, I raised questions as to the wisdom of doing this kind of thing. However, that motion did proceed and people were allowed to make a presentation without being duly registered on more than one occasion since then. And so just in keeping with that and in the interest of fairness, my concern as I originally expressed it was that we can't just have rules on some days of the month and not on the other days of the month. And in my mind, once we chose to suspend to allow for a unregistered presentation on the one occasion, we opened the door and we need to leave that door open. Just to go a little bit further, I'll say that following that first incident, I looked at our meeting procedures bylaw and thought it may be an opportunity to bring some amendments. However, some changes in provincial legislation have complicated that. So there's some provincial legislation that we're still waiting for regulations to come out from the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So it wouldn't be kind of a waste of administration's time at this stage to try to bring some kind of an amendment to our meeting procedures bylaw until that all plays out. And so in lieu of that, a more fulsome kind of solution, I'm moving this motion today, just in the interest of fairness. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Newkirk. Stephen, you have the floor. Oh, hang on. Your mic is on.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like the clerk to elaborate on the advice that was given as we contemplate this motion, please.
You read my mind, Stephen. Madam Clerk, can you just reemphasize your earlier comments were clear implications, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Van Newkirk. The item on the agenda for the bylaw reading, currently right now, the recommendation is to refuse the first reading and to refuse this one. However, should council wish to schedule a public hearing to hear from the applicant and to hear from the public with regards to this bylaw, it is opening council up to a potential bias from hearing anyone prior to the public hearing being scheduled.
Thank you for that advice. For me, I hear what Councillor Penrod is saying around, his opening arguments, but I won't be supporting this tonight, not because I don't want to hear from the public, but because we have a process in place here to speak to council. And it's very clearly laid out on the website. It's spoken about here week after week after week, and it's accessible to everyone all the time. It is not a cumbersome or onerous process. So, for myself, I won't be supporting this tonight, not because I don't believe in the ability to speak to council. It's because I believe in policy and I believe in procedure, and I think we need to get back to that. To Councillor Penrod's point, I do think there was a misstep in not following a rule, and I voted to not follow the rule, but as I've said in other meetings along the way, I reserve the right to change my mind, and here I am. So I won't be supporting this motion here tonight for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. This was a tough one because I do generally like to hear from the public, and I do think that that's an important aspect. You raised some really interesting points, Councillor Penrod, in terms of suspending it sometimes and not others, but that's the whole purpose of the motion to suspend, because we look at it from the particular issue that we're dealing with. It's not one way or the other all the time. Our procedures are generally the way we go, and I think we're at the risk today of circumventing the bylaw procedures if we proceed with this. So I will be voting against it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Councillor McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. I won't repeat much of what my fellow councillors said. I agree, and I think that each situation is different. The previous situation, we weren't looking at suspending the bylaw in order to allow people to speak to a bylaw that was just coming in front of us. It was a separate situation. And I think that that's the point of suspending them, is being able to Councillor Barnhart's point, look at them from each situation. And if this does go to public hearing, we need to allow that process to kind of play through appropriately. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. My comment as well, too, is that I take Madam Clerk's concern very seriously about jeopardizing a potential public hearing on the bylaw that may be voted for and down the road, so I'll not support suspension for the reasons my three previous colleagues have already spoken to. So, Councillor Penrod, it was your motion. You have a final comment before I call for the vote. If you wish to make a final comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the back and forth here from my colleagues. I will remind you that the last time, or the first time that we did this significantly, was around a development in the Dansero community when we had a room full of people show up last minute. And in fact, we allowed more than one person to present unregistered. And I believe it was Mayor Daniluk who gave us the instruction that there was a procedure that there might be folks launching an appeal to the SDAB, and that if we went ahead and heard those folks that night, could be prejudiced, especially if we made comments. And so that was a similar situation, but the only thing that I can see is different is that there's one person in the room that wants to speak as opposed to 12. So I guess that would be my suggestion. If you want to be able to get away with circumventing the rules, then show up with 12 people instead of one.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further comments from members of council.
No,
Sorry, my flight went off for a second there. Councillor McCook, you have the final comment, then we'll proceed.
it went on, then off, and then on, then up.
Yeah,
I guess I would just add to...
Sorry, Councillor. That will may have to reset it once Councillor McCook has finished her comments. Kat, your microphone is back on again.
I guess I would just add to that that's not particularly the difference, because it was going to the SDAB board and not in front of council. So it's not impacting necessarily our bias. It's just that we couldn't, and the information from the clerk that evening was that we couldn't speak to it. So we could hear from people, but we could not comment or really speak to it as it was going to an appeal. The difference tonight is that we haven't gone through the bylaw, we haven't reviewed it yet. So I would say that those are the two main differences, not just the amount of people.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate the last comments. So with that, no further comments at this time. So would you please initiate the voting process for the motion? The motion is defeated, 4-1. Councillor Penrod in favor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councillor Penrod, for the on. Next on our agenda is consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please put the consent agenda on the screen? Any members of council wish to make any changes to the consent agenda? Councillor Penrod, when the screen is on, you can be.
6.2 property tax relief policy be removed from the consent agenda.
Okay, 6.2, correct? Correct. Thank you. Any further adjustment to the consent agenda? Seeing none. Councillor Penrod, would you please make the motion for the amended consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5.1, regular council meeting minutes, June 10th, 2025, that council accept the minutes of June 10, 2025, regular council meeting as presented. Item 6.1, recreation facility allocation policy amendments, that the amendments to policy C39, recreational facility allocation policy, as set out in the attachment 1 of the June 24, 2025 report, be approved. Item 7.1, bylaw 1082-25, natural gas distribution system franchise agreement renewal, first reading, that bylaw 1082-25, natural gas distribution system franchise agreement bylaw, a bylaw authorizing the renewal of the natural gas franchise agreement, be given first reading. Item 7.4, bylaw 1082-25, Youth Advisory Committee amending bylaw, first, second, and third reading, that bylaw 1089-25, Youth Advisory Committee bylaw amending bylaw, be given first reading. That bylaw 1089-25 be given second reading. That bylaw 1089-25 be considered for third reading. And that bylaw 1089-25 be given third reading.
Thank you, Counselor. That's quite a mouthful, I know. Discussion on the motion for consent agenda as amended. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for the consent agenda? That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor. Thank you, Council. Madam Clerk and screen, when someone wants to speak, it's not showing up on my screen. Can we reset take a 5-minute recess, please, and we'll reset the screen. It's not working properly for the voting, even for the speaking. Thank you. We're back live after a short administrative break. We had a slight little glitch. We got it fixed out. So we're continuing with our meeting. Next on our agenda is item 6.1, recreation facility allocation. Sorry, pardon me, that's on consent. I'm in 6.2, property tax relief policy and assessment penalties bylaw update. Ms. Morrison, I see Jay's not here this evening. Are you speaking on his behalf? Let me get your microphone going. And you're good to go, please. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just have a very brief introduction to this item. This report is for information that was brought back as per the November 12th motion. Administration is recommending that we don't make any adjustments right now because we are mid-tax cycle, and that we would recommend that we would come back in Q1 of 2026 to align with that next tax cycle with any recommended changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison, for that explanation. The report is in the file, or in the agenda, pardon me. Councillor Penrod, you pulled it off consent. You're welcome now to make any comments you have on this report. You have the floor, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor Donald. Appreciate the brief introduction, Ms. Morrison. I'll meet you where you left it off there. I did note that there is another maybe more fulsome report scheduled for the end of Q1 2026. I'm happy to hear that. I guess what I feel I need to say is I made the motion and council endorsed it to have this report. I'm pretty disappointed by this report. I feel that it doesn't meet the spirit in which the motion was made. However, I'm a believer that when you point a finger, you got a few pointing back at you. So I will say maybe I'll take this as a learning opportunity in how clear motions need to be as far as if we're giving administration direction, how clear those motions need to be. I guess I will ask, what's the difference between the report that you gave us today versus on other occasions when timelines have gotten extended or administration has realized that there's more work to be done or unanticipated resources needed to complete a task that's been set before you, you've come back with a request to extend the deadline on it. So why not that approach this time? Frankly, this report feels a little insulting to me. I feel like there have been very consistently from a few councillors some concerns with our process expressed. I am taking accountability. Those concerns aren't directly made clear in the motion itself. So as I read this report, I noted that for myself, thus to my earlier comments. That being said, I feel like we've had a lot of back and forth, and that intent has been made clear in other ways. And my recollection is that there was some back and forth that sort of said, do we need to spell that out more clearly? And we were assured, no, you had enough direction to go forward. So why not that approach this time? Why this report?
CO Schwartz, you want to reply to that? Your microphone's on.
Sure. When I look at the motion talks about coming back with recommendations. So in the first part of the report, the recommendation is not to make any changes. So as Ms. Morrison was mentioning, we don't believe now is the time to dig anywhere deeper into this. The MGA is pretty clear. The municipalities' responsibilities are laid out. So we don't see any need to make any changes. That's our update. If we want to do more work on this, we can do it at a later date. The timing of this is also sensitive with the election and the fact that we've got one more meeting. So it all comes down to us looking at the MGA and saying, you know what, if the people who are late don't pay their taxes, the people who are not late must make up the difference.
Thank you. I appreciate that nuance for sure. And I guess I'm going to leave it here for tonight. I do anticipate, whether I'm behind this desk or in the general public, come the issuance of that report, I'll follow it with interest. I just will take the opportunity to reiterate, I think the piece of our process that is troublesome right now isn't the clarity around everybody has to pay their tax bill. Everyone has to do their fair share. The piece that I continually raise issue with is that folks, and I get that it's tricky, they have this right under the MGA to make an appeal. And they have to sort of raise that with administration. Administration is then bound to guide them through the process. But I feel like the way the process rolls out, people are given a false hope that their appeal could ever succeed. And it's their right, I guess, to make that appeal, but I just feel like the instruction or the recommendation from administration is always to council that we wouldn't grant that appeal. And so why even have the policy? Why drag people through or encourage people into a process where they're just going to have frustration on top of frustration? That's the resident service piece that I think we need to address at some point. And I hope that's contemplated in the report coming Q1 2026. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mayor, if I may.
Madam Clerk?
If council wishes to pass a motion that council policy C50 come back with the bylaw when it comes at the end of Q1 in 2026, administration can definitely do that. We could bring it back to a committee of the whole and council could have a fulsome discussion with regards to that policy at that time.
Councillor Penrod, would you care to make that motion? It would be in line with what your thoughts were. If you'd care to make that motion, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I do appreciate that suggestion from Madam Clerk. The question I would raise is this a work that administration has resources to do? I have no interest in making another motion that is just going to get shuffled around a desk and brought back with the same answer. I don't have to like the answer. Let's all save ourselves some work if that's what's going to happen. But if there's some work that can go into this and we can bring it back to committee of the whole with some fresh eyes on it and see if we can improve the process, I would love to make that motion.
Ms. Morrison, would you care to comment on that?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Penrod, yes, we do have resources that we would be able to bring the policy back and hopefully address all of your concerns.
Councillor Penrod, would you care to take a moment and have Madam Clerk draft a quick motion for us while we're on this topic?
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll take Madam Clerk, 5 minutes. Would you have enough time to draft the motion?
Mayor, I have the motion ready.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Penrod, would you please read the motion yourself? Be sure it says what you wanted to say before you make it. We're on the fly a bit here, so I'll give you some chance to make sure it says what you wanted to say. I believe it does, but I'll leave it up to you.
I just wonder if we should add the date that's mentioned by end of Q1 2026. And I think we specifically suggested that it could be brought to committee of the whole before coming to council for some form of decision.
I do believe that the intention is to bring it back to committee of the whole. So I think the way that it stands right now, we would be bringing it back to committee of the whole anyways.
Okay. So Mayor, I'd like to move
If you're ready, please proceed.
that by the end of Q1 2026, Council Policy C50, property tax relief, be brought with the property tax penalty bylaw.
Please speak to your motion. Perhaps briefly, you've already made your point clear, so.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I've spoken enough. I'll
Are
yield
you
the
asking me
floor.
or telling me, just so I know?
I'll yield the floor. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Discussion on the motion, members of council. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process on this motion? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of the motion, and we'll see that being brought back to us, COTW in January. We'll now continue on still with property tax relief policy. We need a motion to accept the report as information. Madam Clerk, we still need that, do we not?
Mayor, we don't need to accept this one. We can just go with the motion that we just passed. It's okay not to.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just want to make sure we didn't miss a step there. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda is item 7.2, bylaw 1087-25, Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan, amending bylaw, first reading. Ms. Tarnowski, I believe you'll be presenting this evening, so let me find your microphone for you there. It is on. Please begin when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Katrina Tarnowski, representing Long Range Planning. With me are Long Range Engineer Trevor Moninka, Senior Planner Matthew Grattan, Manager of Long Range Planning Joanna Swong, and Manager of Engineering and Environment Ryan Anders. My presentation this evening concerns two related bylaws, Bylaw 1087-25, Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan Bylaw, amending bylaw, and Bylaw 1088-25, the Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South Land Use Bylaw, amending bylaw. These bylaws are associated with two land development applications submitted by USK Group Limited on behalf of 1238076 Alberta Limited. The Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South ASP is a partially developed area in southeast Beaumont. It is bounded by the mature neighborhoods of Bow Meadow and Glenbrae Meadows to the north, the developing neighborhood of Azure to the east, Highway 625 to the south, and 50th Street to the west. The amendment area is Plan 1912EO, Parcel D, that's the legal title, is located within the south central part of the Beaumont Lake South neighborhood. The first of these bylaws, 1087-25, would amend the Beauval Park Beaumont Lake South ASP to allow for changes to the land use, servicing, and transportation concepts. Revisions include extending the low-density residential area north of 30th Avenue and west of the LeBlanc Canal, replacing the mixed-use site with separate, smaller commercial and medium-density residential sites, reconfiguring the stormwater management facilities, resulting in a single larger pond, and proposing one additional canal crossing. Concurrently, bylaw 1088-25 proposes to amend the land use bylaw to redistrict Parcel D from the Agricultural Holdings District to three other districts, the largest part being conventional neighborhood and then smaller areas of integrated neighborhood and commercial. This redistricting would enable development to take place according to the proposed ASP land use concept. Administration is not supportive of the proposed amendments, and our recommendation to Council is that first reading of the bylaws be refused. As outlined in Attachment 2 to Bylaw 1087-25, the Planning and Development Report, the applicant has submitted a revised neighborhood servicing report along with grading and stormwater management studies to support their application. The first version of this report was submitted to administration back in August of 2023, and since then, staff have worked with the applicant through several iterations and revisions of the proposed servicing scheme. The applicant has developed a servicing concept that consolidates two stormwater management facilities in the current ASP into a single large facility, which in the context of the Beaumont Lake South area is challenging to implement according to Beaumont's general design standards. And the GDS are the engineering requirements for the design and construction of municipal improvements in new development. The servicing report also shows that there's the creation of significant risk in terms of infrastructure liabilities for the city. The main concern is the steep grading throughout Parcel D that is required to ensure that stormwater drains to the designated facility, the stormwater management facility, and not into adjacent lands. The applicant's design has proposed berms and retaining walls of 2 to 4 meters, so that's 6.5 to 13 feet in height in multiple areas, including along the west boundary adjacent to commercial property and an existing stormwater management facility, along the north boundary adjacent to the larger stormwater management facility, and along at least the east side of the LeBlanc Canal and possibly both sides. Following construction, the retaining walls would become either city assets or impact private property of future residents. Retaining walls require repair and replacement once they reach their end of life, and given the proposed height and scope of their usage in this proposal, they pose a significant liability for the city and future landowners of primarily single detached homes.
Additionally, construction of retaining walls of this scale requires backfill that could encroach into areas designated for deep utilities, creating conflicts with infrastructure planning and into the building pockets of flanking lots. Berming and other grading works will also require fills to be placed within adjacent properties and rights-of-way, requiring backsloping agreements with surrounding landowners who may not be supportive of regrading on their properties. In administration's view, these concerns fundamentally impact the financial feasibility, cost effectiveness, and acceptable risk level of the proposed ASP. The level of revision required to re-engineer the servicing scheme is not appropriate for the detailed civil design review that takes place during subsequent subdivision applications. Therefore, after nearly 2 years of review and revision, administration does not recommend support for council's consideration of these applications and recommends council refuse first reading of bylaw 1087-25 and bylaw 1088-25. This concludes my presentation. Administration welcomes questions from council.
Thank you, Mr. Tarnowski, for the presentation. We will proceed as follows. We'll ask for clarifying questions from members of council. And Councilman Newkirk wishes to make a motion on this particular item, and then we'll debate that motion and we'll go from that point forward. So I'll start with clarifying questions first. Many members of council who have clarifying questions of administration at this time. Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you clarify if the land was developed as per the original ASP, retaining walls and berms would not have been required?
Do you want to answer that one?
Thank you for that question. That is correct. The original plan did not contemplate the use of any retaining walls throughout the plan area. For berming, potentially there'd be some berming in the southern boundary limits alongside Highway 625, typically done for noise reduction, but certainly not to the scope that's contemplated here.
Okay, and then can you clarify, in your view, some of the reasoning for the changes, like moving from 2 stormwaters to 1?
Yes, as Katrina noted, the original ASP contemplates 2 stormwater management facilities. The large reason for that being that the site is split across both sides of the LeBlanc Canal, making it challenging to move drainage from the southwest corner to the northeast corner as proposed in this plan. By combining the 2 facilities into a single facility, now we're requiring that drainage moves across the entire parcel, also increasing some of the developable area and increasing the size of the stormwater management facility. That's leading towards the concerns with the grading, where the grading is being raised and resulting in the need for additional retaining walls.
Okay, thank you. I'm okay for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, a question. You have the floor, Kathy.
Thank you. To the administration, just wanting to know what options are available after this. Should it pass or should it fail? If it does fail, at first reading, what are the timelines before the applicant can return to council, or what can they return? I guess that's my bottom line question.
Ms. Tarnowski.
Thank you for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, for amendments to area structure plans, our terms of reference say that applicants must take a period of 6 months before reapplying with a concept that is largely similar to what had previously been applied for. And our land use bylaw has the same kind of waiting period for a reapplication for redistricting. So there would be at least a 6-month period during which the applicant would not be able to submit an application that would be considered as a bylaw before council.
Thank you. And could you just remind me again, I know you have said it, from start to now, how long has it been that the administration has been working with the developers?
20 months. We've been working with them for roughly 20 months since the application was submitted and deemed complete.
And during that time, have we been consistently saying the same thing? Or have we had changes to our laws that have caused them to reconsider? Or has it been basically getting them to follow the rules the way they are laid out?
Through the Mayor, Councillor Barnhart, our regulations and bylaws and policies have not changed during that period. The comments that we have provided to the applicant have remained consistent, although as revisions came into administration, we, during our review, multiple times identified kind of emerging issues. So there were periods of time where our comments back to them changed, but they were always in line with the same general design standards and policies concerning planning and development.
This may or may not be fair, so if you can't answer it, don't. But would you have any, can you understand any reason why they may not want to follow the rules the way they are laid out? Is there any, is it clearly financial, or is it, you have any idea at this point? Is it lack of understanding? What might be the reason? As I said, if you can't answer it, I understand.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through the Mayor to Councillor Barnhart, that's not really a question administration can comment on.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further, I have a couple of questions myself, if I could. So, Kat, you want to go first? Go ahead. Thank you. Ms. Tarnowski, you mentioned in your report, verbally and in the report itself too, I'm getting my head around the liability that we would inherit down the road. So when a division is developed, after 2 years it comes to become the city property, we maintain the roads, we maintain the parks, it becomes our responsibility and our taxpayer responsibility. So when you talked about the long-term potential liability of these retaining walls between 6 and 12 feet having a shelf life, I'm not aware that retaining walls have a shelf life, so please briefly educate me that they need that. And I'm assuming they do. I wasn't aware of that, but I'm assuming they do. So redoing retaining walls down the road is going to have a financial cost we'd have to bear. So that's part of the liability concern, is the potential down the road cost of naturally maintaining these retaining walls is a big part of this concern from the city. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To yourself, with any infrastructure, there is a life cycle.
Right.
Where renewal, reconditioning would be required. So it's typically about 50 to 75 years with concrete for renewals. Sometimes there's sloughing, drainage issues, water suppression can support some of that, but it is a very common facility. And with Beaumont being situated with some hills, we are currently working with some life cycles issues with some of our existing retaining walls as well.
Okay, that does help understand some of the concern from the report. Thank you. Any further clarifying questions? Oh, sorry, Kat, I mentioned coming back to you. I apologize. Councillor McCook, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you potentially just clarify for me? I know you talked about there may be required backsloping agreements with some landowners and whatnot. Would any private landowners have any sort of responsibility or be attached to any of the retaining walls?
Thank you for that question as well. Potentially so. The retaining walls that are shown, I believe, along the west side of the parcel would butt up against private property, likely low-density residential in that location. So those landowners may be essentially responsible for those retaining walls in that location versus those alongside a stormwater management facility or a roadway, which would become the city's liability.
Okay. And what are the risks to those homeowners, especially during resale or damage? Is that part of the city, or is that the homeowner's responsibility?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor McCook, it is complicated. Often, historically, there have been caveats applied to properties. Ownership is challenging, and due to the scope and nature of often become downloaded back onto the municipality.
Thank you for the clarity. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further clarifying questions of administration at this point before I go to Councillor Newkirk for his motion on this item? Seeing no further clarifying questions, Councillor Van Newkirk, you have the floor for your motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd be prepared to move the recommended motion, if that could be placed on the screen. Yeah, I would move that first reading of bylaw 1087-25 Beauval Park / Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan bylaw, amending bylaw be refused.
Please speak your motion if you care to this point, and we'll open debate.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I definitely wanted to get the conversation rolling with this and wanted to start with the motion. So for myself, I was surprised to see a recommendation come from administration to not move first reading. I can't remember that happening since my time on council. So I was curious to dive in, and thank you to fellow councillors for asking questions that you did in the preamble there. There were a couple of mine were answered. So what I do know is that administration puts forth a significant effort to work with proponents, and we've heard that tonight. Administration's been working for 20 months with the group, and the document in front of us right now shows that the path to yes on this wasn't achieved. Also, the proponent would have been aware that this conversation was coming to council, having not found a way to yes. So when it comes to engineering, planning, and design standards and the conversations that have extended over a 20-month period, leaving this up to council, I also don't believe is the way to go. So that's where, those are my comments to open the debate with, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion on the motion before I have a comment myself or a question? Councillor Penrod. Phil, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor Daniluk, and appreciate the motion, Councillor Van Newkirk. As I recall, part of the report is an alternate option that is almost the same, but would actually pass first reading to allow a public hearing to take place. I don't disagree with what you've said, Councillor Van Newkirk, but I do struggle with the concept of making a decision that makes such an impact on a landowner or developer without hearing from them firsthand. And strikes me that that's the piece of information that I'm missing in this case. We can ask clarifying questions to administration. We're not allowed to do that tonight with the proponents of this initiative. It also seems to me, in the interest of consistency, that we've bent over backwards to hear from all sides of other initiatives being brought forward. And so in the interest of fairness, that's where my mind would go towards moving the first reading of this amending bylaw in order to get to the public hearing, where everyone has a chance to present their views, and council has the opportunity to ask questions of everyone involved. So I guess I agree with you right up to it doesn't make sense to have council making the decision. That's where I will disagree. I think that's exactly why we're elected, is to take those decisions on behalf of the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Penrod, because that's what I'm struggling with, because I don't know what the other side has to say on this particular issue, and I don't feel like I can ask that question. I couldn't answer my question. So that's where I'm left, and I do appreciate that. But I don't want to give false hope, and that's the other part of it. And so I'm just wondering, does it change the timeline at all if it goes to second reading and fails at that point? Does it change anything? Is it still, they can come back again with appropriate changes and try once more, other than the time it takes to go to the second reading?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart, yes, that is correct. They would still be able to reapply. The 6-month kind of period would then start if council votes to defeat the bylaw at the next meeting after
Second reading.
Second reading, yeah.
And Ms. Tarnowski, are there any legal ramifications to us going to second reading at this point? any negative ramifications to the city if we were to proceed to second reading.
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Barnhart. I believe there is no repercussion for the city because it is the council is making a decision on a bylaw amendments, and so the authority is sitting with the council to make that decision. Yep.
Appreciate that, thank you. For that, I will be supporting, I will not be supporting the, I will be supporting the motion to accept first reading, but not to support the recommendation. So in other words, I'm going against the recommendation to refuse the first reading. There you go.
You're going
I
to
got
vote
it
no?
right. It took
You're
me a
going to
while.
vote no?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
yeah.
I knew what you meant.
Thank you.
It's okay, Kathy, not a
A
problem.
negative motion.
That's okay. Question I have for administration before I go to Councillor McCook. I don't want to make it sound too blunt, but it seems the developer is not exactly complying. That's maybe too strong a word to use, so I want to make sure I'm not trying to sound offensive, but to clarify, they're not, let me rephrase that. I want to come across the right way when I say this, but there seems to be not a meeting of the minds here between Beaumont's rules that we have for development and our expectation for engineering and the applicant's application to do something different. There's two different mindsets there, so I don't understand how we're so far apart. Again, I'm not asking administration to tell us what's in the mind of the applicant. That's not your role, I get that. But the situation I'm struggling with also is that we need to have developers comply with our rules or expectations, our long-term expectations for mitigation of risk for the city. Those rules are for all developers to follow, and I'm struggling why we're at such an impasse in this situation, but we can't ask the applicant. That's not our procedure. It's first reading, and if first reading were to be refused, the applicant can still work with our administration to try and resolve this impasse, if you want to call it that, as to these retaining walls and where we have concerns with. So it doesn't kill the development, but it just delays it because of the way our procedures work. And I find sometimes procedures handcuff us a little bit, is how I'm feeling.
Mayor, if I may.
Madam Clerk?
Because this is a refusal, there's nothing in our meeting procedures bylaw that disallows the applicant coming forward. It's not typically something we would do in first reading, but in this case, because administration has put forward a refusal, we could give the applicant 5 minutes if council wishes to hear from the applicant, and council could ask questions. If it does go to a public hearing, administration would still have enough time to be able to, anyone who would want to come to speak to that, we would be referring them to this meeting to ensure that they had all of the information before coming to the public hearing, if that makes sense.
Okay, so in light of what I just said a moment ago, you're suggesting that we could ask the applicant to speak if they choose to?
If council wishes to hear from the applicant and the applicant wishes to speak for 5 minutes, we could allow the applicant.
Okay, so procedurally, do I have to go to a vote for that, a straw vote, or will I take a motion for that, or we just simply say,
There's no.
We want to hear.
As long as council has consensus that they would like to hear from the applicant could come forward. We don't need a vote for that.
okay? On that point from Madam Clerk, do we wish to have the applicant speak? I mean, that's not speak, sorry, address us. Consensus? Okay, how am I going to do this? Straw vote, or this is a wrinkle in our procedure, so. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor first here.
Yeah, I got a question for administration first here. So was the proponent aware of this option coming into the meeting tonight?
The applicant was not aware of this, being able to speak at this, because this is not something we would typically do, but just hearing council's conversation and wishing to hear, the applicant may not agree to this, but the applicant would have the opportunity if council allowed.
Okay, another question for administration
Please.
before we.
Yeah, please, and then we'll get
anything
this
else?
consensus
So,
going.
question for administration presenters. Is there any reason the proponent was not able to speak to council regarding the struggles up to this point? If we've been working together for 20 months, is there any reason that the proponent wouldn't have been able to come and speak to council previous to now?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, no, they would have been able to register to speak at open forum to council if they had
Yes.
wanted to.
So that's a pretty open process. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, 1 second. Phil, I'll get right to you. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor. I'll come back to Councillor Cook. You had your hand up before Madam Clerk stepped in. So, Councillor Penrod, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to clarify with Madam Clerk, if I heard you correctly, this would be allowable within our meeting procedure.
Oh, I didn't touch your mic. It's going weird again. It's on again.
Because the recommendation in front of us is a refusal of first reading. I just want to make sure, I'm very appreciative of the gesture of trying to find some common ground and make it work and giving us this option. I just want to make sure that we don't inadvertently disrupt our overarching procedures. So this would not normally be allowable at a first reading, is that correct?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Penrod. As Councillor Van Newkirk pointed out before, this is the first time that he's seen a refusal, and myself in my career that I've seen a refusal come forward. We don't actually have anything in the meeting procedures bylaw. Anything to do with applicants speaking or anything is typically to do with procedural fairness. In this case, administration feels that procedural fairness would still be able to be kept by having the applicant speak this evening. Not something we would typically do in this situation, but because it is a refusal, council could make that choice to hear from the applicant. But as far as the act and as far as meeting procedures, there's no rules being broken. But no, I would not suggest this if it was a actual first reading.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That's why you get the big bucks.
Sure.
Councillor Newkirk, before I go back to Councillor McCook. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, just before we contemplate shifting gears and hear from the proponent, I did want to take some time, because we are in debate of the motion that's in front of us, just to respond to a couple of councillors' comments around the public hearing angle. So for me, what's clear is the proponent and the city disagree. And basically, what we're seeing now is, let's go see what council has to say. Can't come to an agreement with administration, let's go see what council has to say. I heard from a couple of my colleagues that, maybe we should have a public hearing. So what we also heard is a bench full of professionals that just told us what is in front of us doesn't comply. And I'm not sure what we're going to hear at a public hearing is going to change that fact. So at a public hearing, we can hear other opinions. Opinions don't matter, facts do. And what we've heard as fact from administration is that what is in front of us doesn't comply. So I just want to be very clear that a public hearing is not going to change the technical fact that's what in front of us doesn't apply. So those are the facts.
I agree with you. I appreciate the comment. Councillor McCook, thank you for being patient. You want to weigh in on this?
No, I'm okay. A lot of back and forth. Yeah, I think we also have some input from the public in opposition and stuff. But thank you, Clerk, for opening up other options.
Okay. Any further comments? Because now, with the motion still on the floor, that's fine. Where we are right now is there consensus from council to provide the applicant an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes? We may say yes, and the applicant may say no. They may say yes. We have to give them the opportunity first. So where are we on the consensus to provide the applicant with a chance to speak as per Madam Clerk's comments a moment ago? Steve, I'll bring it to you first.
Sorry, Mayor, you're trying to move this forward. I do have another procedural question.
Fire away.
There's a motion on the floor, and then we're going to hear from a proponent during the motion. How does that work? It doesn't seem like it would be the best procedural piece, but I don't want to be the judge of that.
Madam Clerk.
That is correct. There is a current motion on the floor. The motion is to refuse the first reading to the bylaw. If this motion did go through, there would be no reason to hear from the applicant. If council wants to hear from the applicant, we're kind of suspending the motion to hear from the applicant. At that time, the motion can be withdrawn The motion could be withdrawn right now to hear from the applicant. There's a few different ways that it can be done.
Madam Clerk, piggybacking on Steve's comment, should council have consensus to provide the applicant opportunity to speak, would we withdraw the motion, have the applicant speak, and then put the motion back on the floor? Is that procedurally more correct?
If
I just
we
want to make
don't-
sure we get it right. I don't want to have anything go wrong.
Thank you. If we don't have consensus with regards to allowing the applicant to speak, then I would say I would put a motion, suspend the first motion and put a second motion on the floor to see about allowing them to, the applicant to speak. If the council votes in favor of that, the applicant will speak, and then we'll go back to the main motion. If that fails, we'll just go back to the main motion.
Okay, I'm just digesting what you just said. I want to make sure I get it right, because this is important for everybody involved.
Secondary motion to the main motion.
Okay. So we need to get consensus first.
No, we could put it to a vote, because I'm kind of hearing council, I'm not sure you have full consensus on hearing from the applicant.
You haven't had a chance to ask anybody yet. We've had some procedural questions, which is fine. I appreciate the question, make sure we get it correct. In my own mind, I want to get it correct as well, too. So, Councillor Penrod, a quick comment before I move things along here?
Yeah, it was just going to be similar to what Madam Clerk said, is that Councillor Van Newkirk would have the option to ask his current motion to be suspended. We could set that aside, decide. It would help me to know how to vote on this motion, to have a decision on where we're at as far as hearing from the proponent this
Right.
evening.
Yeah.
So that's the course that I would recommend.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you draft a motion to provide consensus, to provide the applicant the opportunity to speak, and we'll vote on that. And that'll set the stage for continuation of the discussion. Are we good with that? Steve, you have another comment to make before I try and move things along?
Yeah, I think the more simple thing to do would be just to suspend the motion. You know, I'm hearing from a couple of council colleagues that they would like to have that conversation. I've made my stance pretty clear that the facts aren't going to change no matter what we hear. So, you know, but, you know, I would like to move this along more cleanly. So I'll suspend that motion and that would allow to hear from the applicant.
Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to suspend?
No, once we put the motion, it will automatically, it's a secondary motion onto the main motion, so we're going to suspend, that automatically suspends the motion, and then we'll deal with that motion and then go from there. Correct. Yeah, the motion will still be on the floor, we're just temporarily suspending it until we deal with the next motion, which will just take me a quick minute to draft, Mayor.
Okay, take your time. Thanks. Almost time for a smoke break. I don't really smoke, but I might have a smoke break tonight. No closed session, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Motion's up on the screen, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I'll move that council allow the proponent present to count. That council allow the proponent to present to council for 5 minutes on bylaw 1087-25, Beauval Park, Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan amending bylaw. discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Oh, discussion, Councillor Penrod, a quick one, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just respond to Councillor Van Newkirk. I think for me, well said on the front of what the facts are. I will just raise that the proponent has involved, I'm sure, professionals in putting together their proposal. I'm not aware of people getting this far down the process with a plan on the back of a napkin, and engineers have been consulted and
That's
involved in
part
all
of the
that.
debate process.
Pardon me?
So you're making points that are
Yep,
kind
I
of part
just-
of the, should be part of the
Yep,
debate.
I just skipped ahead. Pardon me.
Yeah, no problem. I want to get this
Let me back up.
dealt with, and then we go from that point forward. See no further discussion? Please initiate the voting process. Councillor Penrod, want to hit your button again, either way? Thank you. Thank you, Council. That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of allowing the proponent to present if they wish to. Please join us at the table. We need a preamble. I know you're a little caught by surprise speaking to us, which is okay, but we'll take 5 minutes, and we may have some clarifying questions, we may not. So don't read either way into that situation. So I'll get your microphone going when you're ready here. We'll have 5 minutes. There's a clock on the wall. Give you some comfort on how it's going to move along. Okay? So gentlemen, let me get your microphone going.
Hello.
And you're good to go.
Mr. Mayor and honorable councils, first of all, we absolutely appreciate allowing us to speak for a few minutes. Our purpose over here is not to somehow like affect your vote. We just want to present the facts about this whole process. I would like to say we have been working on this thing for 3 years. And I will say we made this mistake because originally when the original staff was here, we met with them and we said we want to change 4.23 hectare of mixed use area to single family, because at that time that was what required single family. Everybody wanted single families. So they said no problem. And we started this process just to change the mixed use into single family. Everything else was as per area structure plan. Then we went along, and over the time we got new good people came on, and they have their own feelings and understanding because they were trying to get into this project, to know what this is, And so it took 3 years, It's not that we took and we were apart, The question was that they asked us to get everything, whatever they asked us, we did that. I can show you and I challenge that this issue of retaining wall, Mr. Mayor, came at the last month. Everything was agreed on. That issue came and administration said they have no problem because if your retaining wall is between 1 and 2 meters, you don't need design. If it is higher than that, then there will be a design. We said, fine. So we went along with them. We had meeting on 27th of May and 30th we submitted, they said submit between 2nd of June. Between 2nd of June and 9th June, they never talked to us about ever that there is an issue with the maintenance guys, As soon as they told on 9th, on 10th, our engineers work overnight and we showed them, we came over here, we met the general, our main planning managers, and we showed them that we have already worked out the plan which shows there's no retaining wall. We do not need a retaining wall because we changed the grading direction of the flow. I am engineer for 40 years in this business, I have been doing that, and I know exactly. I have 5 engineers working for me. We met in the night time, they worked through the night, and I came to next day, I met with our planners, senior. I told them, showed them, I said, listen, we do not require any retaining wall. They said, no, it is too late, we cannot talk to you anymore, we said, please, because we are working on this for 3 years, millions of dollars at stake. We have worked very nicely with them, they have asked us again and again to change, and we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to satisfy them, And this, if somebody shows me that before May, anybody talked about the retaining walls, we will just go away from here. Last month, and they said to us that they are okay with 1 to 2 meter without design, and if it is higher, then you have to get it designed at the detail level. So we are talking about area structure plan. We are not talking about lots right now. Mr. Mayor, and councillors, we have already done that. There's no retaining wall. We showed them, they said, no, it's too late, we don't want to talk to you anymore. And that they went and they did this thing. We have everything else satisfied. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on doing our stormwater management. The original area structure plan had already approved, the stormwater management. They asked us to do 5 storms. We said, no problem. We worked with them all along, And at this moment, they are telling us, we have spent 3 years. They want us to another 6 months. I don't know what is going on. But, Mr. Mayor and respectable councillors, we have already done this thing. We want to go to the next stage. We are just asking that we should be listened to. We want to put our engineer, everybody, and you will see we can get all the paperwork, everything is there, designed. So that's all we can say, that this was just as surprising to us, when they told us that they are going to reject, as it was we were just blown, because they never said anything that there is some maintenance problem or this and that. And that only happened in last month, This retaining wall never came up before, So that's my thoughts.
Okay, gentlemen, it's 5 now, so I'll take questions from council to our presenter. Councillor Penrod, you have a question.
Thanks, Mayor Dunlop. First question, just by way of a little bit of background. Is this the first development work that you're doing in the city of Beaumont, or do you have prior experience?
I have done 4 seasons estate in development, in this area when there was no development. And at that time, the mayor of the time and the general manager, they asked me to take the city land and see if we can do some bigger lot subdivisions, And I did that one, that opens up the whole south Beaumont, I work with them. I worked for City of Edmonton for 13 years. My job was to approve land development project. I am expert in stormwater management and pipe systems and how the servicing can be done. We have done in Sherrow Park, we have done in city subdivisions, But this is
4 seasons.
This is 4 seasons, but our jewel, one of the jewel, here, that we did bigger lot subdivision and open up that one.
Thank you.
Follow up?
Follow up, please. I just thank you. I know that this kind of got sprung on you. You weren't necessarily prepared to speak tonight, so appreciate as prepared as you are, and appreciate that the stakes are high for you, it sounds like. I won't assume anything, but my question is, if this doesn't proceed, either at first reading or second reading, because we're not making presumptions about that, hearing from you now. If this doesn't proceed, what does that do to your prospects for doing this work?
The thing is, we have already millions of dollars buying the land and work with the council. We have done every report which was needed, in this one from A to Z, So everything is done, and this thing about the retaining wall, it just brought us in the last month, and then we were discussing the last actually 15 days that we were discussing this thing, and I have shown you all our records, also. So it is obviously devastation, for us, because we are losing a whole this year also, and this is just not fair. That's all we can say. We are not asking that anybody changes, we are not trying to impress in terms of their thought process, but we are giving the facts, what are the facts, that's all.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for, on the spot, speaking to it. I think it's always difficult to do, but you're obviously passionate about it, and you've invested lots of time and money. I wonder if, I'm going to ask your partner if he could respond, because I know he's had a lot to do with this project as well.
He's my son.
Yes. I don't know if everyone knows that. I did. But I would just like to know if, from your perspective, what was the significant change that led to this kind of going off the rails in terms of the project? Because, it seemed to have been going okay, and then in the last month or two, it seems to, new information. So just from your perspective, I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for the floor, again, everybody. Yeah, as Riaz iterated before, the retaining wall was never on the table for the first 2 years at all. It just happened the last month with some grading changes. But when they said that there was a problem with the higher retaining wall, which caused a risk to the city, which we understand, we absolutely removed every retaining wall in the whole subdivision. But unfortunately, it was too late for their final submission to the administration for this reading. So it has already been changed on our side, and it's following all the GDS, the standards that you have in Beaumont. So we wanted to mitigate that risk. We want to work we are partners with the city. So we've already removed that. So that's already done. So that if there's an opportunity for administration, we have that for them with the engineering all done as to the standards. So. Yeah, that's so off the rails is a little bit, it's just a surprise. It was sprung on us where the wall was too high. We didn't know that was going to be an issue. So we removed it completely and we changed the grading to work with all the surrounding parcels. So we took their concerns into account, and yeah, that's our stance. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions for our presenters? Seeing none? Thank you, gentlemen, for taking a few minutes and speaking with us this evening. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one last thing. We have no disrespect for the administration. We respect them, and we apologize that we are in this situation. We just ask that. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, our next step. I believe we put the motion back on.
Mayor, can administration just have a quick 5-minute break here?
Actually, we're very close to taking a break in general, so we'll take a 10-minute break. Normally at 7:30, take about a 10-minute break. We'll take it now, coming back around 7:35.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on break till 7:35. Thank you. Oh, part 4. Sounds like a Star Wars movie. Okay, good evening. We are back live after our short break of get some administrative things lined up. So we will continue with our discussion on item 7.2, bylaw 1087-25. With that, Councilman Newkirk, you mentioned you had a question to begin our next proceeding before we go back into our motion. So with that.
Yeah, just wondering procedurally speaking, so we're at a spot now where a motion was put forward, it was rescinded. Now the motion is back. We've heard from the proponent. It seems, maybe there could be some kind of a path forward if there was more conversation, but I don't understand the procedural mechanism to allow more conversation. Is there any help you could give in that?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Van Newkirk. Can you just clarify on what you're saying? Are you saying that the conversation between administration and the proponent, or
yes.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're in a he said, she said scenario. That's the way it is right now. What council heard, is that there's a solution in place potentially that might have mitigated concerns. We don't know that. So there's a couple paths forward. One of them has like the 6-month deferral if this was defeated to work with and sort out. I'm just wondering if there's any other path other than that allows the conversation to continue with new information. But because if it can't be new information brought into the conversation and we're stuck, then that's the answer.
I'm going to refer this question over to Ms. Raymond, Director of.
Yeah, no problem.
Ms. Raymond?
This is uncharted territory, I know, so.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. We have been working with this applicant very diligently for many months now. When we've requested additional information, it's brought up new concerns with the plan. This retaining wall might be the latest one, but there have been many issues with grading for actually a number of revisions. So this is the latest part where we're at. If we review this, then there could be additional challenges. We are at an impasse where we have continued to work with that. And I think what we're faced with is one of those situations where we've worked really hard to try to get the applicant to a solution, and we have not been able to get there. And I don't believe we are going to be able to get there. And, you know, at this point, we're going to continue to do that. It's costing administration time and effort to be able to continue to process an application that we have not been able to move forward on. And I believe that that is likely going to be a very similar type of outcome here, where we have continued to go down a path and we're making trade-offs and considerations that will have long-term impacts and ramifications for the community in the future.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the answer to the question is that no new information comes through or is able to come through unless this would be defeated in that 6-month period would come. Because, you know, what I just heard is that if this motion was deferred, and tell me if I'm wrong, clerk, if this motion was, or if this whole thing was deferred.
I didn't touch your microphone, it just went off.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is if this whole thing was deferred even, there's no mechanism to bring new information in into the conversation. So I think given that, Mayor, I'll move this motion.
Okay.
Get the debate started on it.
So Madam Clerk, I think it'd be better procedurally. Steve, would you please restate your motion, please, just for the record?
Yeah, I would move that the first reading of bylaw 1087-25 Beauval Park / Beaumont Lake South Area Structure Plan bylaw amending bylaw be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to your motion at this time?
Yes, Mayor, I'm putting this motion back on the floor because from what I can tell, you know, this decision has been left to council now. That's why we're here. And from what I can tell, if the applicant was to bring new information into the conversation, that can't happen in any other way unless this motion moved forward. There was a 6-month period and then it comes back to life. I did not hear any options from administration that was going to allow that. Oh, just a second.
Oh, Madam Clerk? Okay, our microphones are weird again. It's on now.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Winter.
Through you to Councillor Van Newkirk. So I do want to clarify in the land use bylaw with regards to the something coming back. If there was a substantial submission that was different, we would not need to wait that 6-month time period for it to come back. Administration would be able to work with the proponent sooner than that 6 months. So there is an opportunity to continue to work with the proponent on something, not what they've submitted, but something substantially different.
Sounds to me like the options are getting better here with this conversation. So, you know, so that reiterates why I think we need to move forward with this and why it should be refused and allow whatever procedural mechanisms there are to have conversations take place with old information, new information, or other to proceed. So this is cumbersome because I think it's uncharted territory for all of us. So thank you. So this is the motion that I move right now.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll reiterate the same thing. I've been on council almost 8 years, the first I've ever seen first reading to be recommended not to proceed. So this is definitely uncharted territory, and we're working through this as best we possibly can. So Councillor Penrod, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Phil, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor Dunlop. It sounds like we have a way to proceed, and I'm happy to hear that. I do just want to ask a question of administration to see if there are any other paths available. When something comes to first reading, who essentially drives that process? Is it administration bringing it forward for first reading? Is it the proponent with the help or consultation of administration? And does the proponent have the option of withdrawing that proposal, so to speak? And if so, would there be any benefit to the proponent to do that as opposed to have this motion for first reading to be refused?
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Councillor Penrod. The applicant does have the opportunity to withdraw an application previous probably to us providing this for council for first reading. They were made aware of our position, and we did offer them that opportunity to withdraw, but they did want closure. They wanted a decision sooner than later. As far as when the timing for bringing an application for first reading is, we usually bring that when the application is complete and they have satisfied all of our concerns, and we are ready to bring that forward for council approval. At this point here, this is probably one of the first times I can remember bringing an application forward for refusal. It's exceedingly rare for us to be doing that. And at this point, it was, we can't continue to work with you any longer. We're opening ourselves up to liability to continue to provide you guidance that is not working. And we need to make a decision here. You have an opportunity, I think, to make a new application to the city if you want to continue. I think that when we talk about what those goalposts for substantially different are, it can't be the same plan. And I think we need to determine what that is. Going back to what the area structure plan originally contemplated, no retaining walls, 2 storm ponds, a different layout, like that's what substantially different is going to need to look like, I think, from our perspective. But at this point right now, I think that the path has been chosen, and honestly, I don't believe that right now withdrawal is, I think that's always an option. I don't think that that would be the best one here at this point. You can choose to refer that back to administration. That's always an option available to council as well. But I think, is there an end point for them to continue to work with administration if their concerns aren't satisfied within 6 months? As we're working through that, this does take away from our ability to process other applications and work through other items. So I think that those are a few things for council to be considerate of as they're making that decision.
Quick follow-up, Councillor. You're good right now? Thank you. Councillor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm hearing the same thing. I think I'm hearing it a little bit differently. Ms. Winter, I think you said that it could take less than 6 months if they were to substantially reapply, or if we refused first reading, as is suggested, and they came in with their new proposal, that it would take less than 6 months. Did I not hear that?
It could. Sorry.
Thank you,
Madam
Mayor.
Clerk.
Through you to Councillor Barnhart. What I'm saying is they wouldn't have to wait out the 6-month period to be able to come back to reapply. With this refusal and this coming forward, this is as the plan as it is shown today. So this would be, if council refused this plan today, this is the refusal. We would not be bringing this exact layout to council. It would be something substantially different, as Ms. Raymond mentioned in her last comments.
So what essentially we would be doing is refusing that plan as it existed, with the retaining wall not meeting our requirements. That doesn't negate them trying again. Substantially different proposal to meet what the demands that we have made before them, or the rules that are there before them. And Ms. Raymond, you agree with that? You're saying the same thing? Okay. All right, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
That clarifies for you. Thank you, Councillor. That clarifies it for myself as well, too. So the applicant can come back. Oh, Councillor Cook, let's go to you first. No, go right ahead, please.
No, Mayor, you can finish your comments.
Okay.
You finish, go ahead.
Trying to be accommodating here today. Yeah, the applicant can come back fairly quickly with a revised plan that would be more to the guidelines set out by the City of Beaumont, and they can go forward from that point. So that's my understanding as well, too. Councillor McCook, I'll go to you, then we'll go to the vote, please.
Thank you. I think, a lot of my thoughts have already been echoed from various councillors. I think administration has done some extensive work here, as well as the applicant, in going back and forth. And what we've heard is that there are drainage concerns with what's been proposed. So I think we need to trust our administration and what the work has been done. But what I'm hearing is there are a lot of options to kind of work it out from here on out. So based on that, I will support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilor Van Nieuwkerk, it is your motion. You have the last say before I call the vote. If you wish to have any comments, you have the floor, Steve.
No further comments. Councillor McCook's words were great. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions from members of council, would you please initiate the voting process on the motion before us? Councillor Barnhart, I'm showing nothing on the screen. Would you mind?
Just doesn't like my phone.
Okay.
Have to really sign.
Thank you. Thank you, council. The vote is unanimous. Opponents, thank you, administration. It was an experience this evening. I think we have a path forward, and I'm encouraging the developer to seek out our administration and come back with hopefully a revised plan that will make both parties happy and get that development going in Beaumont for us. So we encourage you to work with our administration going forward. Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you for presenting when you had the opportunity. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, Madam Clerk, to clarify, 7.3 is no longer required because 7.2 first reading was refused, correct? So 7.3 is no longer required?
Mayor, we should, my apologies, we should go ahead and refuse that one as well, please.
Okay, would you please put, having said that, procedure speaking, administration have anything to present on this before I go to the recommendation that does, they both go willing to make the motion on the screen. So willing to make the motion on the screen. Councillor Penrod? Your microphone is now on.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that first reading of bylaw 1088-25 Beauval Park, Beaumont Lakes South land use bylaw, amending bylaw, be refused.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to speak to the motion? If you want to, you're able.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, would you please initiate the voting process for this motion? That carries unanimously, 5-0 in favor of. We'll continue with our agenda this evening. Moving now to item, hang on a second here. Pardon me, bear with me for a moment. Yeah, item number 8, councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Are there any this evening from members of council? Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, you have the floor, Stephen.
Yes, Mayor, I do have one inquiry tonight. Please provide information on the current surface level for the standardization of the mow strip, i.e. width size, that happens adjacent to pathways in naturalized areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing none, item number 9, CAO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
You bet. Thank you very much, and Rebecca will probably pull this up very quickly, but we have a few items. First and foremost is Canada Day on July 1st. There will be functions going on in Four Seasons from 2 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night, including the fireworks. It's always a very well-attended function, and our room expansion projects are finally completed, and you can see pictures of them there. This has allowed us to expand to take in more than 20 to 30 children in the kinder room. So we've started the enrollment calls, and we are almost full already. Summer events, Summer in the Park is back. Program is run out of Four Seasons concessions, rotates through 4 city parks. It will take place on weekdays through the summer from 10 till 2:30. Summer camps are also offering they have a big and diverse lineup along with popular preschool and day camps. They're extremely popular, and you can see there's 270 kids that are registered already. And as far as infrastructure is concerned, we went from street sweeping to pothole repairs, and we just completed line painting. So it wrapped up on the 18th, which included the control markings throughout the city. That marks the end of the 2025 line painting program. So thank you for infrastructure for getting that put together. And that's all I have.
Thank you, CEO Schwartz. Any questions for our CAO on his report? Seeing none. Item number 10, notice.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have any notice motions this evening.
Thank you very much. Before we adjourn, I'll simply make a comment. This past weekend was Beaumont Music Festival. Some of you attended. In administration, some people I saw there, and some members of council. It was a very successful event. I believe the most successful one they've ever had from what initially was told by Jeremy and Karina, the two primary members of the planning committee for that. So hats off to the organizing committee. It was a great event. I was there myself on Saturday, and the crowd was boisterous. It was enthusiastic. The music was great. And there were a couple of beers consumed. I wouldn't have any knowledge of that, of course. But bottom line is a good event and great for our community. I'm looking forward to them being even bigger and stronger next year as well. So having no further comments or anything else, I know Councillor Barnhart announced not running for re-election. I'll save my comments for you for our last meeting in September. But initially, of course, I do want to thank you briefly for your 12 years of service, and I will give you an appropriate send-off at our last meeting in September. I mean that in the nicest possible way, too. Let me rephrase that. In the nicest possible way. In fact, I might even have a toast with you on that. But again, thank you for it's public now, and I do appreciate your doing that. And I want to thank you for your service, and we will have an appropriate discussion and send off in our last meeting. You definitely earned that, and I'll make sure we look after you accordingly. Having said that, seeing no further business this evening, we are